Hello, this is Brian Funk, and thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I'm very excited to announce that my new book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, is now available in paperback form, a real book that you can hold and touch and turn to any page you like in a second. And it's a pretty big book, 629 pages of activities, exercises, and wisdom I've learned over the years. It's available on Amazon.com. 5-Minute Music Producer is 365 music-making activities that will help with your songwriting and music production. It'll help you fight writer's block, make more music, write better lyrics, develop solid workflows, learn techniques for generating ideas, and finish more music. It's like having your very own music production personal trainer giving you ideas and challenges each day. And the best part is the challenges are quick and easy, and they only take a few minutes. So even if you don't have a lot of time, you can spend 5 minutes and advance your music production skills. There's no better time to improve your music than now. Imagine where you'll be after a year of these activities. The 5-Minute Music Producer has hit the #1 new release in the music songwriting and music recording and sound categories on Amazon. So check out the 5-Minute Music Producer, 365 music-making activities. It's available on Amazon.com, or you can go to brianfunk.com/book. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk, and today I have a return customer. It's Lynden Williams. Way back in the early days of the show, Lynden was on. He just released some music as Divorce Court, and we're here to talk again because he's got a new album out, and it's awesome. It's great. I've been listening to it a lot. It's a great summer vibe. He's been out playing a lot with it. Lynden is also a documentary filmmaker for Ableton. He does the artist movies for the Loop team. He helped me out when I did the One Thing video. That was a blast, and I learned a ton, and it's great to connect. We've been buddies ever since. So, Lynden, good to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, it's been a while, right? That was maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was maybe the first or second year of the show.
Yeah,
so,
3 years ago. Yeah, 2020.
Well, 2020 is when we did the One Thing.
I see.
And probably 2-3 years before that was the podcast.
Wow, our friendship reaches back now. We're getting old.
2 decades. Two different decades.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words on the album. Thanks for listening. And you were one of the first people to really comment on it on Instagram and show love. And I'm really glad we're able to do this again because I haven't talked about the creation of it much with anyone off of social media, where we know it just gets posted and thrown away. So it's nice to do something a little longer.
Yeah, I thought you did a nice job building up to it.
Thank you.
Where you kind of led into it. You had some singles come out, teased it a bit. It seemed like a nice, well thought out plan for the release.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Oh, yeah. I had only done like an EP and some singles and some tapes, like beat tapes and like cassette manipulated slow versions of stuff as albums, but I feel like this album for me was like a crash course in proper music releasing, I guess you'd say. Like by proper, right. I mean like an album I did not realize is so different than just putting out singles in so many ways, but I was always trying to figure out how many singles, when to put them out, when is it too early, because we did stretch it out quite a bit. Like March was the first single and July was the full album. But we needed the time because like we really were like pushing to finish things up until June. When it came out in July, you know what I mean?
Nice. And
trying to get the new live show prepped throughout May and June with a full band, which I'd never done before. So it was a lot.
So you're using the deadline, I guess, to get stuff done.
The deadline, yeah. Things that I learned from the podcast. The deadline, honestly, I don't think I would have ever finished this record without it, without having a cool, reliable co-producer this time around, and who's now pretty much my co-writer on most things Divorce Court is Chase Lambert. He makes music as Cedarface and Real Content. But like once he came on board, I had these ideas fleshed out a year before the release, really. And I wasn't like wasn't in a great place mentally, honestly. And I was just like kind of feeling down on it all and not sure where the finish line was, you know? Like originally we had this goal of August 2022. We were like, okay, the record's going to be done August 2022. And then it was September, and then it was December. And then we were just, and I'm really glad we did that because so many songs were completely changed by the time we finished them from where they were in August or summer of last year, you know. I think they definitely ended for the better, like ended in better places.
Yeah, wow. So it's a big shift. It's almost a year.
Yeah.
And I can't say I'm surprised you hit one of those dark nights of feeling down. When would you say that sort of set it? I mean, it seems like every project, there's always that point, right, where you're like, oh, I don't know, for whatever reason, and sometimes it's multiple reasons. It's just, you almost feel like it can't be done. It's an impossible summit to climb.
Yeah. It was a combo meal, I guess, of sorts, because we had like the music side, but then the record kind of sagas this like 2-year journey in some pretty intense therapy. And every week or every 2 weeks I'd go, and like it was always like they were always like hand in hand, you know, where I was at emotionally, kind of like diving in and just working on my child self. It's kind of a buzzword right now, trauma and child self work, but I mean it's important, you know, like to go back there and kind of just poke around, you know, get down in there in the darker places of your memory, because beforehand I always knew that like this project for me like really was always based around these hazy childlike memories and nostalgia and like trying to uncover these feelings from my youth, but there wasn't like specific topics as much in the early music, you know. Sometimes there was, like Sea of White, my single from 2019, is about death. Indonesia is about some time I spent as a teenager living alone in Indonesia, and wrestling with like what I thought God was, or who I thought God was. Like there is topics in there, but I didn't really get really, oh, I have a Tide pen in my hand. I have a stain. I just got it. I always like to hold stuff, but there wasn't, you can cut the Tide pen. No sponsored ad from Tide. There wasn't any really like macro level themes, I guess you'd say, until this record. And I think it feels true, you know, and it feels lyrically, it feels stronger to me, like personally, because it's more true and open and vulnerable. And that was never like a big worry of mine, like being too vulnerable, but it was more letting my voice come forward in the mix. That was the hardest part, I think, because this record,
like singing voice, okay, just
like really letting some of these songs, like, you know, less reverb, better vocal mix overall, like more volume on the vocal, less hiding. I guess that's the whole thing. We're all kind of hiding behind something, you know.
Right.
So
I went through the same thing with my band's record.
Really?
Where I'd spent a lot of time doing the vocals, producing them, you know, in between practice, and they'd come back and I'd play it for them. And I got like cool effects and hidden vocals. And they pushed me to, why don't you take some of that stuff off? And it's kind of like, oh, I put all this time into it, but then it's also naked out there.
Right.
And it's something you got to get used to and almost do a leap of faith on. But I was kind of convinced, because they were saying it allowed you to really hear the like intricacies and the subtleties of the voice and what's happening, and the emotions come through that way.
Yeah, there's a few artists that do it really well. And when you hear like other artists that you love being so vulnerable and open and accepting their own sound and not trying to hide, it's like pretty inspiring, I think, to do it. And I'm not going to say the whole record's like that. Like there's songs where I got layers and little altar boy underneath and tons of reverb on the send, and Eventide from my mix engineer Ryan on a bunch of stuff, which I want to talk about Ryan because he did an incredible job. But it is, for me, it was more like way more dry and forward than before. And I think it just has more punch. Like we went with a lot more like saturation and grit on this album than before. And that was big influence by Chase, my co-producer and close friend, because his influences are, and he's a guitarist. I think that helps. You know, when you come from the guitar world, I think you just fall in love with like saturation.
You're not afraid to distort things.
Yeah. And I, having never really played the guitar well, I'm more like into pianos and keys and synths, but although I'd love to be better at the guitar, but having never like really messed around with guitar pedals as much and just sit there and tweak distortions, it wasn't really I didn't understand how it would fit into my project, if that makes sense. Because I'm always like, originally I was always reaching for these beautiful pads, you know, and these less intense like sounds, but it's honestly, it was like less exciting, I guess you'd say. Sometimes when these like there's this part on the song Spill on the record after Mouth from Nowhere, the lyricist, rapper who comes on that track after his verse ends, like it just like comes in with so much distortion and the drums sound good and like the distortion is behind the vocal, but it's also on some keys and guitar. And I just think that's when I was like, wow, it all makes sense within my project now. It doesn't just make sense for other people like Kevin Parker and, you know, like artists who are like quote unquote good at making that distorted sound. So it was cool. There's so much to learn. Like I said, like every song has a different takeaway. It's 12 songs. In, you know, like 18 to 24 months-ish, you know, which is slow-ish, but I'm not super fast. I mean, we hope to have probably a single out by the end of the year that just didn't fit on the record, but I'm definitely not like a release a single every 6 to 8 weeks type songwriter. Probably because I'm just busy. I mean, I have my full-time job and I have 2 kids, partner, family, you know, so.
Well, that was normal up until, you know, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Right?
Like I would be so excited when it makes it less exciting when artists are releasing too much, you know, like,
yeah,
I remember like the gaps of some of my favorite artists growing up. Like Phoenix to me is just like ultimate high level, incredible band, like group. Right. And when Wolfgang Amadeus Phoenix came out, I think there was like a 4-year gap between 2009 and 2013. And when that next one came out, it was like worth the wait, you know. But if they're releasing singles every 8 weeks, it'd just be like, okay, hey, that's cool, you know.
It gives an artist a chance to develop a little too.
Yeah.
You know,
You change a lot, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to see, there's a new record that just came out from an artist that I love, and we're connected through some mutual friends, but Trevor Powers' Youth Lagoon record. He put out a new record this year on Fat Possum, and he was on like a unspoken hiatus, I think. Like there wasn't any records coming out for a while, you know. Don't quote me on it, but I think it was like 7 years. But seeing how his sound evolved over that time period, he put out a few other records under a different project, under his own name, you know. But it's cool when you see someone venture out and then bring those learnings back. It's like they went on a trip and then bring the learnings back to the project that you fell in love with, you know? It's such an incredible record. It's warm and off. It doesn't feel quantized at all, which is really cool, especially for my ears because I come from like an electronic music background. So I love hearing records that use drum machines and like real piano and really interesting vocal effects and guitars, and like it's a mix, but that doesn't really feel that quantized. I really love that.
Yeah. That I only know the one Youth Lagoon record.
Yeah, it's like the Year of Hibernation with the purplish cover. Yeah, the first one was like the big one. This one's
it's great.
This one's amazing, honestly.
That's fun.
Yeah, they're on tour right now.
I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's called Heaven is a Junkyard. That's what we've been listening to on repeat, honestly, in our house. Like the last, since June, since it came out. And my wife will play my own record all the time. And it's like, I'm like, that's great. But it's weird hearing the record like playing all the time in the house, you know, or my kids will ask to listen to it in the car. And at this point, I'm like, I want to like make some new music, you know, because it's been, you know how it is to finish. Like, you could go months without opening up a new session.
Yeah.
Because you're just in finishing mode.
Yeah, you're tweaking, you're working, and then you're doing the other work that's not even really music.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah.
It.
Yeah, the release and social media. I got a bit, I guess going back to your comment on like the release strategy and stuff, it's like, I'm happy that it was received well, but I am experiencing like pretty bad social media burnout. Like, I don't feel like I want to do it right now. I'm not like huge on it, but I wanted to be strategic and consistent with the record release. But it's weird, right? Because you finish the strategy that you've created and then it's out, and then it's like, you know, like, did you hear the record? It's still out. You know what I mean? And I really don't enjoy using social media. Like, I even tried the TikTok thing for a bit. It just felt ingenuine. And there's people who do really well on it and they love just like creating video content. But I just want to like make the music, you know?
Right.
But I don't know if that's really an option these days, to just make the music and play the music, you know?
I don't know if it is either. I mean, at least if you want it to be your entire career, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to. I spoke with Ebony Smith on the podcast, and she said like an artist is an artist about like everything. So the social media stuff, even the promotion stuff. And she said like all the most successful artists like really put in all of that energy into every aspect of it.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
It's hard because you want to do the thing you want to do. You didn't really know you were getting wrapped up in all these other things as well.
Yeah, and that stuff is like, it's work, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I felt like this year I feel like I have like 2 jobs now, you know, but one pays my bills and one doesn't. But
it's how it has to be, I guess. I mean, I get into video editing and website designing and all these things like I never would have decided to do.
Right.
Because you do music and then you realize, oh, I got to design a logo. I got to make a flyer. I got to, you know, a million things come up along the way. Yeah,
that brings me to like this thought of like, I think the one thing that I'm extremely grateful for on this whole cycle of finishing and releasing was putting together like a really, really great team of people to work on it with me. So I didn't have to try to do it all, because I know where my skills don't lie. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I like, but I'm not a good designer. And I know how I want it to sound, but I'm not the best mix engineer. I mix like older stuff on my own, but to be honest, like I like the other mixes more. It's just like a lesson on collaborating, right? You get someone else's taste on there, and suddenly it's like, it opens it up and it gives it new life. But yeah, I think I'm just learning like the mix side every time, and one of the coolest parts of this process has been getting all the stems from the mix back, and then learning from studying the stems. You know, and
what they did to your work.
Yeah. So the whole record was mixed by Ryan Hayner, who some of you might know is in this band Small Black. And so
it's a cool band.
Yeah, they're from New York. And I played a show with them in August of 2022 when the record was supposed to be done. And they're just so great musically and live and as people. And me and Ryan like really connected. And I had some mutual friends with some other folks on their tour. Keith Sweaty, who's an amazing artist and producer. His partner is Laura Nadoon, who I knew through my work. And so it's just like a weird green room like connection, like spiderweb, you know? But I just like was like, man, Ryan is like so great. We just talked a bunch, and I just kind of like, I guess, what's the phrase? I kind of just like shot my shot, you know, like in a month or so later, I just like DM'd him and I was like, hey, like, would you ever want to hop on and help me mix this record? Fully expecting him to be like kind about it, but be like, you know, I don't know, I'm busy. And because they're like, they put out a new record that year and they're always doing stuff. And he's also got a family and touring. And but like, it feels pretty, the whole record feels very cosmic. Like everything that I put out into the like universe just as like a question, I feel like was answered. And not all of it was like given or like answered in the way that I hoped, but I feel like I was getting answers, which felt nice, you know? That's like a very, you know, what's the word?
Mystical.
Yeah, mystical way of speaking about it. But it did feel really special when he agreed to do it. And then we just started working on it. And it was nice because we were kind of at the same pace. We didn't do it all at once. I would just send him like a Dropbox link and be like, this single, or this track's done. This is the first single. Here's the date. These 3 tracks are done. And yeah, the mixes every time. I think the furthest we went along in a revision on a mix was 3 versions. And like the third one was like, hey, can we turn the snare down by 1 dB? Like every time I got a mix back, it was just like, yes. And it makes sense because like they're one of the influences of divorce chord, like that era of like early chill wave, you know. You'd put them next to like Washed Out and like Teen Days and all these artists that kind of like started brewing in my brain, my creative mind emotionally, and curiosity started to spark around those years of like 2010 to 2013. You know, it's like a micro genre, you know, and I don't think I can call the new record strictly chill wave, but I can think you can feel the influences. I think I've just been calling it like, I think we called it chill gaze, like chill wave meets shoegaze, you know, because there's so much interesting and cool guitars from Chase and like, you know, or just indie. I don't know. What are genres these days?
I know it gets hard. It either they get so divided and so specific that you don't even like know what to call it. It's one album is a genre.
I know.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's music, and I was thinking about that actually today. I was listening to it, your record, and I was thinking about the genre, the feel, and I'm like, yeah, but it's like there's even like a little bit of hip hop going on in there. Yeah. There's like, you know, like maybe like the chill hip hop kind of stuff, but it's in there. So it's not just straight up anything in those worlds, but it's like it's a feeling. I almost feel like what you have is more, and I love that in an album when there's just like a feeling. So you can put that thing on and just kind of go there, go to that world, go to that place. And yours does that really well without any kind of crazy interruption, you know, where cool. Something really steps out of that world. So it's kind of just, it's great to just play, just to put on.
That's great.
As a whole.
I do see, I do imagine like music as just language. You know, like there's music that I like to listen to and music that I don't prefer, but I have a hard time saying any sort of music is bad because it's like a language. You either understand that sound and feeling or you just don't, you know. And you can learn to love certain types of music. Like I didn't grow up listening to jazz at all. But I love jazz now, and I feel like I learned what the feeling is, and like I'm not going to sit here and say I know a ton about the history of jazz, but I would never turn jazz off. You know, I grew up listening to a lot of country. I'll probably turn country off because I don't really speak that language anymore. You know, but it's really interesting. Yeah, like we talked about, like what is a genre, and if music's just a feeling, everyone's kind of operating on like different waves of feeling at all times, you know?
Yeah, and it changes even in like a day.
Yeah.
In the morning, I feel different than I do in the afternoon, and I want something else
Yeah.
that I might want, say, at night if I'm going to sleep. And I find that's actually a really helpful way when I'm going to make music myself, is to sort of think of those purposes or those directions I'm trying to go. What is a listener going to be doing when this is on? What's the point?
Yeah. And I think that's why I have a hard time with like gear. I think sometimes I'll buy a piece of gear based on like the feeling at the time. And then after it, if something sits without me using it for like more than 3 months, I'm going to sell it. But I usually regret it.
Okay.
But I see everything as like a like monetary value. I'm like, oh, geez, you know, that synth sitting there, it's like, that's $600. I'm looking at one right now that's for sale, but I won't say what it is. But one thing I don't think I'll sell is my 404 sampler, and I really love this Yamaha Reface CP, the little like Rhodes, like Wurlitzer, like. I like it because it sounds good, but also it's perfect for live performance, you know?
Right. I was just watching a video from Tatro. I think that's how he says it.
Oh, yeah.
Tatro,
I like his videos.
Yeah, he's great. And he was showing his new kind of like jamming rig with a push 3 and a CP. And he might have even had a 404 in there too, actually.
Oh, that's great. I got to check this out.
Yeah, it's like brand new, the video. But yeah, the thing sounds great. It's nice.
Does.
It fits right and compact.
And I love
Those
that it
kind of just flew by real fast, and you didn't hear about them.
Yeah, they were out of stock for like a year or more. But I love that it has this hard, like knobbed delay and reverb. You know, so like for live performance, it's cool because. Like I just love the tactileness of the knobs and stuff.
Yeah,
sponsored by Yamaha.
Big knobs, yeah.
But I'll like mess with the time and depth live, so like it'll sound really crazy. And it's like giving.
Is it
live
like a
feedback.
repitch effect?
Yeah, it'll be like vroom, 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 you know, like when you hit that knob on echo in live, you know.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, they're nice. I dig it. Big fan. But I don't have a lot of gear. Over the years, I've bought and sold gear. One thing that I keep getting and selling, and I want to get again, is an OP1.
I thought you might say that.
Yeah. I think we talked about this. I had the older one, and then I sold the older one. It's not a cheap piece of gear, and I think that's why it's hard for me. As a parent, I'm always just like, you know. Kids' activities, money.
Like a year of college.
yeah, exactly. But then right when I sold the original one, the Field came out. And I was just instantly like, okay, time to start saving up for that.
That looks pretty cool. And it seems like it addresses some of the annoying things about the first one.
Yeah. And I actually
which might become the thing that makes it like a vintage, sought after.
I've never
USB
really
hum.
I had to buy like a ground attachment to get rid of the hum, but I never used like the tape function. I just used it as like a fun synth, and I did a lot of just recording straight in, and that's actually why I liked it, because I was committing sounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I never really got along. I think it's because I'm so embedded into live and like DAWs, but I never really got along with like the function. My friends down in Mexico City have a like a collective called the OP1 Club, op1.club. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Is that what it is? They play these shows, and there's like 4 to 6 of them around a table. It's 2 of like some of the dopest producers and musicians I know, but it's Orestes Gomez, who is like a drummer and producer. He does a ton of stuff with the OP1. His this is him. It's amazing. And then Raul Sotomayor, who makes music as Tonga Conga and Sotomayor. We actually worked on some stuff together for my work. He's amazing. These two follow Tonga Conga and Orestes Gomez, but they have this thing that they work on called OP1 Club, and they'll like play these shows. Like this is like them around the table, like with everything from Teenage, you know?
Cool.
Like they each have like two
like the
LP ones.
modular and everything.
Yeah, the modular. But they have these wild shows like where people like really show up, you know, like they're selling out these like cool shows, and they'll perform like in the middle of the group. Mexico City is like, yeah, one of my favorite places on the planet. I think the energy and like the creativity, and you meet every like 5 minutes, you'll meet someone and they'll be like, I'm doing this. And then you like check their stuff out and they're really doing it, you know, like everyone's making art down there. And it helps to know a few of the folks who are like helping lead the change, but like so many creative folks down there. Like, I tell everyone, I'm like, go, like, don't move to Mexico City because we don't want to add to the issue of gentrification, but go visit. Like, and just feel the like hum of the energy and the creativity, because it's special for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't heard much about that.
Yeah.
That's cool. That sounds like a fun club, though.
I know. I would love to go to a show. I think we were when I was there last time. Speaking of Phoenix, I saw them play at this like huge like warehouse venue, and it was amazing. And I was in this mode of like researching live playback, and the way that their playback was so dialed, it was just incredible. The way it was synced with like the visuals and like all the cues, and the way that everybody, I feel like everyone had like a moment, you know, to like shine in the band, like the way they designed the playback set. I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm playing the record and playing with a band, and like I think at one point my live playback set had like 700 tracks in it, because I just put all the stems in it, right? Whoa. And I've been cutting it down. But I just started.
700.
I was just like, as I was building it the last 8 weeks or whatever, like I just put all the stems from the record in the playback session in groups, in their own projects, using Will Doggett's formula from studio to stage.
Yeah.
Trying to do it the right way. But, and then I just started deleting, right? Because a lot of those were sends and returns from the mixes, right? So, but that's how I started. Surprisingly, didn't have any real issues with CPU, because it was just audio.
Wow.
I didn't have any plugins running or any effects on anything.
Okay, so it's the process stems. They're all kind of printed.
But now I've cut it down a ton, like because we don't need. So every time we have a rehearsal, though, we just delete. You know, like all the bass is muted now because we have a bassist, and almost all the guitar, unless it's like a weird reverse layer or a duplicated layer that Chase plays over or with, that's unmuted. And then I like to leave some of the like ambient effects from the vocal that are like stereo, that aren't really the dry vocal or the main vocal at all, but it's more just like space. Or if I have like a layered vocal that's like 12 dB down below, like Little Altar Boy, like I said, I'll leave that underneath. But
a little support, basically.
Yeah, because I'm running the vocals all separately through the UAD console straight to the house.
Okay.
And that's been amazing, because I used to run them through the computer, and that was scary sometimes.
Yeah, do you mind talking about how the band plays, what the live rig is like? Yeah.
So currently we have a bassist, a guitarist, and a keys player. And I think like we're kind of like feeling out where it's going to go in the future. Like some days where me and Chase are like, let's play like all on a table and have it be more like hybrid, like samplers and synths, and like more like triggering, like kind of more like fluid. Some of these songs aren't really like designed that way, so it's kind of a mix of both. We don't have a drummer, and I've been going back and forth a lot. And I think if we were doing like a real run of shows, you know, like a 2-week or more like tour of shows, I'd probably feel inclined. But sometimes like backtrack, like drum machines to me just fit the sound so well. So if I had a drummer, it'd be cool to have some light percussion. And like the drummer who played on the album is touring a lot, and he's really busy and he's super talented. And
Drums are great on the record.
oh, thanks.
I wanted to ask you about the drums actually in particular, because it sounds like live player and,
Yeah,
it's got groove and swing and it
thanks.
feels very natural. Does not sound programmed or anything or stiff.
Yeah, so that is a close friend of mine, Ukiah Bogle, up in Boise, actually. He tracked them all in his studio. And he would send ideas, or I'd send like a really simple like drum machine track and be like, what do you think? And that was another thing that was just like, there wasn't revisions. It was just like, thanks. In like a day, like we were both on this like same production phase and not, it was like in between touring. Ukai is super talented. He's been in a ton of big projects. Right now he's drumming for PD. PD, Instagram is PD USA. He's like a really, really talented musician. He's also a comedian, like on Instagram. So it's a really interesting combo, but their shows look like super energetic and fun. It's like, it's true like indie rock. Like, I don't want to be crucified for like defining the PD genre, but like it's like that sound, but with like a callback to like some of those like early like I don't know, like drive-through records, like early emo indie stuff. It's really hard to pin down. I'm really bad at genres, so go easy on me. But anyways, he's doing that, and also his own music. The Ukiah's tracks are like so good. He's putting out music, which I think him and Orestes are unique because they're drummers, but they're putting out fully produced tracks, and they're working in the DAW and they're using synths, and like they're artists as well, which I think is so cool. Because if you have that understanding of percussion, and timing, it's just like, every time he sends me a new track, I'm like, those drums. So
yeah, I mean that's everything. With almost any style. Like if you get the rhythm right, you get the groove right.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that right, nothing is right.
Yeah. So he plays on 5 of the songs on the record. And on one of the songs he played it, and then we actually like layered just his overheads and then had the kick and the snare come from a 707 drum machine. So it was really interesting because the overheads just added like a nice like blanket over this like tight like drum machine. It's the opening track on the record, No Trust. And it made it like bigger and more like punchy. But for live right now, I've replaced some of the drums with like more like danceable loops, or I've increased the BPM like 10 to 15 for the live versions of these songs. Like we played the song Woodcrest from my record at the album release show, and it didn't feel like it was fully there without a drummer, because that one is so much like a live drum feel, So for this upcoming show, I like replaced it with some like faster like disco drums and increase the BPM, And that's what's fun about playing live, is like sometimes in these backtracks I'll be like, man, I wish I could go back, like add this part in. Or like our bassist like played this really cool bass line over this older song, and I'm like, oh man, like I really wish that was on the recording.
Right.
So
yeah, that's, I guess, because you're really rethinking them for live. It's different, I guess, depending on how it originates. Where when you're a band, you work on it and then you record it. And even still, things change from time to time. You're like, oh, we do this cool new cut here that's not on the record, but it's a little more decided upon before you record.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're doing it more like the way you're doing it, and now you're figuring them out live.
Yeah. It was
work.
like pretty overwhelming actually, like early on. Like it went from like the record's done to being like, oh no, like how do I translate all of this live without, like we've pulled back a lot of the stems, right? The 700 track backtrack project is funny because like that's where it starts when you import all the sessions, but now it's like muted bass, super simple drum groups. Some of the synth work is hard because, like, no one can play 4 pads, 3 leads, and 5 keyboard parts. I mean, my stuff is I don't think it feels chaotic, but there are so many synths. And they're all layers, Yeah,
it's a dense layered sound.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really hard for the mix engineer. I'm sorry. That's one. And also, I think sometimes, like, this is important to like acknowledge, like, it is maybe making up for a chord progression or original sound that's not strong enough. And that's what I want to work on going forward. Like, if I start with a pad that's just not super interesting or strong, the reason I'm layering it with 4 other things is because the original one just, like, wasn't. So that's what I really want to work on going forward, is like simpler projects, and make sure that, like, every sound can stand on its own. Because we had this rehearsal where my bassist Kevin and Chase, the guitarist and co-producer, like, I was going through the stems and I got to this piano part and I was soloing everything to see, like, what we should mute. And Kevin's like, what's that? Like, that sounds really great on its own. And you can't even hear it on the recording because it's just buried, Yeah. And so I think if you we're like picking the parts that are like the all-stars and pushing them up and then just kind of stripping everything else. And you know how it is when you get to, like, a room, everything has natural reverb and delay and like ambiance. So we do have to strip it back quite a bit. And then it leaves room for the instruments and the live vocal. It's been fun. Like, it was overwhelming, but now it's more enjoyable. And every time we rehearse, we're taking things out to where there is a world where I think it'd be cool to, like, play these songs without any backtracks if I had the right group and, like, enough instruments on stage. Because if you do strip it back, like any song, it all comes back to, like, 1 or 2 main progressions with the vocal. Like, that's the idea: the bass line, the chord progression, and the vocal.
Right.
I mean, that's just like me explaining what a song is. But I mean, like, it's cool when I strip those back to 4 to 5 layers and go, like, oh, like, there's the song.
Yeah, it still works. Yeah. Still sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're talking about with the production, with, you call it a weaker sound. It doesn't, that's why you're adding stuff. But I also think a lot of, what you're going for, this kind of dreamy, you're looking back on childhood a little bit. So there's that nostalgia feeling, that kind of floaty type thing. It works because it's not that the parts are meant to be on their own necessarily. They are working together with other parts. And I could see how when you then change perspective to, like, okay, we have 3 or 4 people that need to perform this.
Right.
How are we going to do the 7-layer synth part?
Right.
Then it becomes, okay, well, maybe we need to rethink it. But in the context of the recording, you can get away with all that stuff where you have just this little layer and there's a little thing that changes it like 10%, but it's a meaningful 10%.
That's like the question, right? Is how, like, for you, how do you know when to stop adding layers? You could just never stop.
You can never stop.
There's so many plugins and so many options in that scale. Like, how do we know when to stop?
Deadline is a good one.
Yeah. But I mean, like, not even when to stop, not when a song is done, but, like, if you have a group in your song called pads or synths, how do you know when to stop adding tracks? This is more, I know for me now, but, like, this is maybe a cool question for producers who are still defining their sound. I'm not saying I'm not defining my sound, but I know for me how I know when to stop. But, like, what would you say to, like, someone who's younger or just starting out? Like, when is it enough?
Yeah, from my experience, I think it's less than you think.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when I actually get down to business, once I've got my ideas, like the session view aspect of working, where I'm collecting, adding, building, fleshing out, and then I go to actually arranging it, it's so much subtraction. And so often I guess along the way you're putting things together. I know what I do is I'm always trying to keep the song from the very beginning. I'm trying to make it sound like a full production from the start. So if it's just a drum beat, they're like cranked all the way up. They're, hitting the limiter and they're saturated and full, where if I exported it right there, it would be like, okay, this is like a full sound. But then I have to add the next part. I have to add the bass. I have to add the chords. So I get like, I need it to sound complete the whole time I'm making it.
That's actually such good advice.
It's what gets me in trouble though, because then there's no room for the next thing, and then I got to pare everything down, and there's no room for the next thing. But when I'm finally getting to that arrangement part, it's so much subtraction. It's all getting stuff out of the way, because I will have this full sounding song of just like, say it's like guitar, bass, and drums, and the vocals aren't even in there yet, and it's a vocal song. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to take it to those extremes so early on. I think I really think for me, it's like a fear thing. It's a procrastination thing where I'm like afraid to do the vocals, because that's something I don't feel as comfortable with. I don't know how they're going to come out. So I'll dress everything else up real nice.
Yeah, getting it ready.
To avoid it, yeah.
Or you'll be like, I'm just going to work on this a little longer. I'll do the vocals. I'm going to do the vocals. Just give
we'll
me
do
a
a
little
day.
time.
Yeah, but for now I could really like EQ all these toms and...
I think the drums need more tape. I'm just going to buy a new tape plugin. I don't know. We'll see.
Exactly. For me, it's definitely like a insecurity, hiding, fear thing. And
yeah, I think that's probably what I was saying too about layering, right? Like, I think it's partially the sound, but I just do think there's a way that I could achieve the sound with less layers and then be more confident in what's already written. Like, knowing what you put into the recording already is enough, and anything that's being added is simply based on taste or decision, not like it doesn't need. I go from like need a lot. Oh, the song needs this, and then it will be done. Oh, it's not good yet. Once it has this, it needs this, and I think I want to go away from need and go more towards like desire. Like, what do I want to add to this song? Maybe it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense in my head.
Yeah, I think I get what you mean.
Like justifying continuing to work on it because you think you'll get to this point where you're like, it's done.
If I think about a track, like, what does it need? Well, for the way I write, it needs the lyrics, right? It needs some sort of rhythm and some sort of like chordal foundation to put that all on. That's what it needs. And I often leave the need stuff until the very end because I'm avoiding.
So you're actually
needing fun, like, weird spaceship sounds in the background that you barely hear anyway. And I'm tweaking like compressors and reverbs and little details before I even have the thing built.
Yeah, I find myself. I lost my train of thought. In terms of like needing, I find myself thinking like strongly like, oh, once it has this, or this, it'll then be a divorce court song. And it's strange. Like, I don't want to put myself too much in a box. But I think sometimes I do. I'm like, well, it's not here. It's just an idea. Like, there's a song on the album that it's different than other stuff I put out. It's called Tree. And it's really pared back. It's just piano. Michael Wall, a friend of mine, recorded this really beautiful baby grand, like 100-year-old baby grand. And it's just a vocal and a piano and some really sparse synth work. And then Ukiah like programmed some really minimal drums. And it's like, I think it's a cool song because of like the collaboration with them. But I was always trying to ask myself, like, during the release process, like, is this a divorce court song? And then it's hard. It's like, well, did I make it? But I don't think that way, I think, and that it does limit me in future writing. I'm already making plans and folders for what I'm calling LP2, because I want to put out the next record sooner without it consuming my life. But I want to put it out in a year instead of 2 years. Healthy, like a healthy length. And maybe not 12 songs, maybe it's less, but there's no planning. I try to plan and then it always falls through. But I would love to not, because this thing I say took 2 years, but there was just so much time where I wasn't working on it because of like life and personal health. So I'd love to try to like stay in a good rhythm, but I don't know, like what is a song, what makes a song X project versus, because if you have one main project and that's the music that you put out, is every song in that project? Because I want it to stay within a certain world and feeling.
Right.
But is everything I make in that feeling? I don't know. That's the question. I'm not a composer or a music producer, so I don't make a ton of different styles of music. I don't have that type of skill set. Like I can't sit down and be like, today we're going to write a blues song. That's just not how my brain works. I don't know.
Yeah. That's tricky. That is one of the reasons why I just went with my name after a while. Just put stuff out as my name, because it's like, well, maybe I should put this out as a different thing, because I just started thinking about stuff too much.
Yeah.
And it was freeing to just be like, well, how about I just use my name? Like, why does it need to be anything else? Why do we have artist names when you think about it? It started, as I started going down that whole way of thinking, I couldn't understand why bands have names. Why everything started to seem really weird and funny and awkward. So I just said, how about
I wonder who the first band name was.
Right.
Was it like in the 1930s? Like,
we're the rock and rollers.
Yeah, or like the Shooby Dooby Brothers or something, just like so strange, I wonder whose big
like
idea that was.
Gang.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Like sometimes I make some lo-fi hip hop stuff under this other project, and it's fun because it's really, it feels good to make that stuff, and there's no like emotion attached to it, minus like the joy of making the music. Like there's no lyrics and there's no like real personal thing being brought out, besides like, oh, this is a beautiful chord progression, or these drums sound nice.
Right.
But that stuff doesn't keep me up at night like Divorce Court does,
Well, yours is interesting too now, and this is definitely, I think, a big theme for you for this record. I mean, you were doing everything by yourself.
Yeah.
Back in the old days. Divorce Court was just what Lynden was calling his music, right?
Yeah.
And now you've got a lot of collaboration going on. I think that's a big shift for you, right? This time around is that you've got different people musically, production, mixing, and other aspects as far as like you said, design and art and stuff. So it's now the question could actually be a little more tricky for you, because is it still just what Lynden does at home when he's got some time and he feels he wants to make something, or is it now this group of people you're playing live shows with? Yeah,
it feels, there's not like it feels more fun, honestly, like letting other people in. It feels like freedom. I feel like this album, 2 hours, was like this like thing I needed to get out to then move forward and start making more music that I really, really want to make, and I want it all
release.
It feels really nice to have it all out there, and the collaborations were so, these songs they're not me, I don't feel like, even when I listen to them, I can listen to them now and appreciate them because there's so much on them that I didn't do. Before I would listen to my singles, or they'd come on and I'd be like, oh, well, just me. I'm just listening to me, and it felt weird, or I'd pick it apart. But now I listen and I'm like, wow, Chase's guitar part, Chase's bass part, Damien's master. We haven't even talked about Damien. We should hit that next, but or Ryan's mix here, or his decision on the vocal tell here, or the way that he mixed the drums, like wow, or Ukiah's rhythm on the hi-hats. Like it's so cool to like be in a group where I can just sit there and appreciate the skills of those who like came on. You know what I mean? And that was really cool.
When I first started making songs and music, it was always in the context of a band.
Yeah.
And it had to be because I couldn't do anything else. I could barely play my guitar as it was. So, but I always like knew what I wanted everyone to do. You know, and especially as I started kind of fooling around on drums and bass and stuff, I was like, oh, it has to do this. And got very, almost like a dictator, you know, where like, no, you gotta do this. Trust me, it has to go this way. And then playing music by myself and recording and having all the freedom to do all those things, make it exactly how I want, was great and a lot of fun. And now as I'm coming back to playing with a band again, it's so nice to be like, come up with the drums, come up with the bass, you know? What do you want to sing? That's why I'm here now. I'm here not because it's the only way I can make music. I'm here because I want to collaborate and I don't want to do everything. And I want you to make your drum part because it's going to make me play my guitar part different.
Yeah. Oh, so yes, definitely.
I could do it by myself if I want to. Why pull a bunch of people in and tell them what to do?
Yeah.
You know?
I would love to take the band and hop into like a studio for a day and re-record one of the singles from early on. Like Indonesia or Sea of White or Doubt.
Yeah, right.
And just like reimagine it with their ideas. And because we do that a lot live, like any of those older songs, I just mute the guitar that I programmed or recorded rudimentarily. I don't know what the word is, like the way that I was recording guitar back then, right? I'd sometimes just pick like one note at a time and string it together, or I just play like VSTs, the plugins, the guitar plugins, or like, yeah, bring on like, and going forward, writing these songs for the next record will be way more collaborative, even more than this one. You know, Chase has already sent me ideas that he started, and Kevin is recording at home now with his like bass parts, or he's really great with like melody ideas. And there's three things I wanted to talk about, and one was the master. I think the album sounds amazing on any device. Not only the mix by Ryan, but the master by Damien Taylor, who was a friend of mine through my work at Ableton. And he's a producer, mix engineer, mastering engineer, like just kind of has done it all over the years. And he has, I like saying this for him, but he has 10 Grammy nominations.
Wow.
It's insane. He's just a loving workhorse. Like he just like he's so kind, but so like good at what he does. And he was so cool to collaborate with on this and take on this project, and really helped me think about things. Once you finish that many records, there's things that you can share that like bedroom producers don't know, you know? And so I learned a ton from him. And
anything in particular stand out?
I just never thought about track listing in with the final masters in how they run with each other on an album.
Track sequence, like
yes.
The order?
Not the order, but like the way that the like tails, like beginnings and tails, and how much room to leave between for the next song, and like things like this that they do in the biz. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I just like upload songs, be like they're out. Right. You know what I mean? So
that's something I appreciated about the record, is that it keeps you in the feeling of the album. You know, it doesn't. You don't leave it too long in between songs.
Yeah, well, we talked about that, and then I just ended up actually cutting some tails, because I mix a lot of my tails on the stems long, and then Ryan would leave it because it was cool. But some I went through after, and some of them I was like, let's get to the next one. Like, we don't need a 9-second reverb tail that I wrote and just hand it off. I would go back and cut it back. But there were some really cool ones, like some really interesting hardware decisions that Ryan made in the mix, and then I kind of left those in there. But yeah, I got the masters back, and I was just like, this is why collaboration and spending money on things that have been advertised to us like they don't matter. Does that make sense?
AI mastering.
Yeah, like sure, like of
Upload
course,
it and have it in 3 seconds.
but of course, like these things are necessary. Like my first single was mastered on Lander, and Lander's a great product, especially if you're a bedroom producer who's trying to just put stuff out and you don't have any money. And it does pretty well with like a decent mix, you know, and I know the folks over at Lander, and I think their product's awesome, and some of their samples libraries are cool, and they're trying to like make music more accessible, which is great. But when you put your art that you spend so much time on into someone's human hands, and then they use their human ears to make decisions with knobs with their hands while listening back, I think it's just, I don't think it can be replicated, you know?
Yeah. For the first time ever, I had something mastered with the band. We took our album to a mastering engineer, Scott Anthony, and he ran it through tape. He had a beautiful room. And I mean, I don't even know what he was doing a lot of the times. There were times when he was turning the knob, and I'm listening.
And you're like...
It's like a half...
Yeah, he'll be A-Bing it.
Half a notch.
Like in the switch, you're like, A or B. It's like when you go to the optometrist, and they're like, A, B. And it's the same. And you're like, B?
It's the cumulative effect, though. You know, one... After it, and just the attention to detail, the things. I was going to mix it to my tape machine, which needed some work before then. And, you know, he's cleaning the heads after every single time. He's running like test tones to make sure everything's, you know, stuff I don't know how to do. Yeah. And stuff I don't even know what he was doing half the time, demagnetizing it, you know. But yeah, like, after it was done, it was just like, well, magic almost. Just this is another level. Yeah. And I learned a ton. It was great. He let us come in and sit with him, you know, while he did everything. And it was awesome. It was such a great experience. It was a band trip too. You know, we had fun that way. That's cool. It was really, but the effect was profound. You know, it sounded like an album after that. Yeah, and they make these micro adjustments that are not noticeable to a non-expert's ears, right? And then, but all those micro adjustments are the things that add up to like the final product of the noticeability, right? It's not for me, it's not in the moment, but at the end product, when you look at A or B, it's like, well, that's when I notice. Yeah, you know, and it was just so great, and yeah, it's just like I said, I just feel so like it's. Stereotypical, but like blessed to have like worked with such a great group, even down to like friends who worked on art. Like Ty Davis did all like the art direction and design, and he just like, you find people who really get your vision, and then you don't have to like give them much feedback because they understand the language, right? And then there's 2 collaborations on the record, like actual writing and lyrical collaboration on the record, which was completely new for the project, right? There had never been a feature on any of the songs before, so that was also like a cool learning curve, and really rewarding, honestly. Yeah, those tracks came out really nice, and they sound a little different. They have, what was it? I'm trying to blank on the name right now. I think it was like the last single you released. Yeah, Blind Spot with Doves. Yes. Yeah, that I got a little bit of the hip hop vibe from.
Yeah.
In the vocals, actually. In
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking like kind of a Juice World, Post Malone ish. You know, not. I don't know much of their music to really tell you.
Yeah. I
But
mean, big, like their production's really big, and like it does live with those like heavy 808s and like really interesting hi-hat programming, and really noisy. Like Doves' project is production-wise, it's incredible. Like lots of noise and distortion. And that is the cool thing. Like you get those influences on both. Like Spill featuring Mal from Nowhere. Like he's from Kenya, you know, and he's like a multidisciplinary artist out of Kenya, and he's putting out these beautiful singles and albums that like it's hip hop, and it's poetry, and his album was really collaborative too, and we were coming out with records at the same time, and that collaboration came together really easily, and he just like understood the vision really well. And then the Doves track too, like Doves has been like one of my best friends since I was 15, and
nice.
we've collaborated on things over the years. Like he actually played the guitar on Indonesia, my second single. And you can tell, like, it's not me. Like, there's a really nice, it's at the end, and it's like a really nice distortion, and it's like this really cool building guitar that just like gets louder and louder to the end. But yeah, that was cool. That song feels super special to me just because of that collaboration. And then like just like the theme, it's the last thing you hear on the record lyrically, and it's just this idea that like nothing's real, and it's just like this bookend of like trying to, you know, heal yourself and move forward, and just understand that like, hey, like most of this stuff isn't real, or most of the things you're scared of won't happen, or most of these anxieties are just anxieties. They're not real. You know, most of these things we worry about aren't real. Social media is not even real. I mean, you know, like it drives engagement, and it's really fun. Like the thing that I'd miss the most about social media is messaging with people that I wouldn't talk to like over text, like friends from other countries who I just maybe met once or twice, who we don't have like a texting relationship, but it's really great to see what they're up to.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, definitely the good side, but I know what you mean about the
or like like seeing what you're up to,
dark side,
or commenting on your stuff, or seeing like you post the snippet from music making or the podcast, like things that you wouldn't text me about. Hey, check out my new podcast episode. You know, like it does have a purpose. I wish I could pay for an ad-free version that was chronological. So bad.
Yeah. I'd probably lose a lot of friends if I was always texting them like, hey man,
new
I
episodes.
Made this cool effect.
New pack. Your packs are so great.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I love them. I end up going back a lot to like some of like Washed. You remember that one?
Yeah.
I like that one.
I remember you liked that one a lot. I was happy you liked that one because that was one that I always felt was really cool, but I didn't know how to tell people how cool it was. You know, when you made it, like sometimes when you're doing things like that, you don't know how to explain what's cool about it, or at least in like a concise way. Some are easy, like recorded the VHS tape. Cool.
That's so easy, right? Yeah. Those drums are sick. VHS drums. Wow. I forget the preset. It was like the name of a movie character, but I was always using
they're all like 80s action movie characters. That's a hard thing to figure out too, is what to name them all.
Yeah, I always think that when I go through presets of things, like some of the names are so funny. But
you know, having that like collaboration though with Doves, somebody that you knew when you were a teenager, because I mean it's so cool because you're never gonna meet anybody new that knew you as a teenager that you can work with. You know, it's like friends that you have when you're that young. You just can't make new friends like that anymore. It's impossible.
And we would talk about like we'd both DJ right at that time, and DAWs were they were less accessible, I think, because it just wasn't pushed in our faces as much, so we didn't really know what was possible. GarageBand was loaded on my MacBook, but I'd use it sometimes. But we were really into DJing, and we both had similar interests. And we actually made a few tracks together, which is funny. Now that it's cool that we're both still making music. Like the love didn't fall away, and I don't know what the word is. Like, you wouldn't say, I don't know what defines you as a successful music maker, but I think like if you are still doing it, after half your life, there's a reason.
If you've made music,
right? Like,
successful
I think you said
right?
one time, maybe it was you, but you were like, it's not. Is it a song? Until you put it out and somebody hears it, like, is it a song? Right? Like, does it exist? Does it exist? Maybe it was a different interview I was listening to, but once you finish a song and put it out, and then it's a song. And I think anyone who's put out a song, like, that's so huge. It's so hard.
It is. It's nearly impossible.
Yeah. And especially early on, to learn about like the how to even get the sounds from the computer to the final output, to upload a song, a WAV file to the internet. My first upload on SoundCloud was called Tropics. And I just couldn't believe it. I spent most of that time trying to figure out in Logic how to program the sound of a record, like stopping and starting, like, and I spent probably half of the production time on that one beat trying to figure that out, Right. It's so interesting. Cool.
Well, when you think about it, from the moment you sit down to decide to try to make something to that moment when you actually decide it's okay to release, there's infinite opportunities for self-doubt and fear and technical issues. So many things can happen to you in between that. Just getting bored of it. It is almost a wonder that anything ever gets put out. Yeah. I always say, whenever anyone puts something out, like, congratulations. Like, and it's nice. I often will like remind myself too, like, it's possible. Like, it's evidence that I could do it too. Somebody did it.
Right. it's such a nice reminder. Like, in an interview with my friend Raul in Mexico City, I'll never forget when he was talking about like, not like the competitiveness of it, but having a lot of friends who make music. When they put something out, it makes you want to put something out that's cool and like that's new and fresh, and like it really invigorates you to like get straight to music making and be like, oh, I want to put something out. Like, not even to try to one up them or make something better, or just, it's just cool to be like, I know that person and they're doing really cool stuff, and I also want to be creating. And there's this my wife and I have been reading, or listening to rather, Rick Rubin's The Creative Act.
It's great.
Yeah. And
listening is great too.
Yeah, because it's his voice. It's so great. Yeah.
And his voice is just like so loaded with wisdom.
Yeah. I know. It's so gritty and deep.
Yeah.
When I would get down on, I can't say enough about having a supportive partner in creating and investing time and money into a project.
Well, and she seems very involved as well in some of the videos.
The vocals on 2 of the tracks, like sitting here, listening to all their visions, giving good constructive feedback. It's life-changing, because there's times where you just want to quit.
Yeah.
And if your partner didn't care, they'd be like, yeah, no, sell your stuff. That's great. We can make all that money. There's a lot of money in here.
Well, we could change that room now.
Exactly, right? We could, put even
just having someone that is okay with you doing it.
Exactly.
Spending your time and like understanding that. Yeah. It for whatever reason makes you a better person, or is just an important outlet. That's it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be much. Yeah. But there's been times in my life with people where they didn't get it, and it didn't work out. So it's I couldn't imagine if I had it any other way, where if my wife was like giving me like the side eye when I went to make music, it would be
right. is
That'd
so
be
important.
awful.
And it's important, I think, for me to be with a creative person because she's inspiring me. Like if I'm in a rut and I see her being creative with all of her outlets, I'm like, okay, like I feel like energized again. But we really love this part in that book, the Rick Rubin book, where he talks about this idea. It was in this perfect time where I was like really burnt out, and I was like, we have to finish these last 3 songs, and the singles are already out. I already have a release date. The money's been spent. And he said that creativity flows through you, and if you don't do it, then someone else will. And I was just like, okay, that's like motivating, because I do feel like some of this stuff doesn't feel like it was a choice. And that's like a kind of spiritual way to look at it. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that I'm special or that the album is just the most amazing thing ever. But for my personal journey, it didn't feel like a choice in some ways to say certain things or to like inject certain feelings into the music. And when he said that, I was like, man, I guess I got to do this because it's right here. And if I choose not to do it, then the universe will just move on to the next person to try to get this message out. And I have to like just once more put the caveat, and I'm not saying I have this great message, like join my cult of divorce court, but I do strongly believe that Rick Rubin is right and that energy is real and that like we're all doing this all day. And that's why music exists. It's just energy, like we were saying, and language and feeling. And I love when an album or a single gives me that feeling, that wash over your body of just auditory pleasure, right? Of just like, this hits me right in the feels, and I'm adding this song to my playlist right now, and I'm going to listen to it every day for the next 3 months. You know? It's a great book.
It really does change you. It can take you from one mood to another, from one wavelength, and that can change your actions. That can change your direction. That can change the way you talk to somebody. That might change. It really is kind of wild when you think of all the potential, ripples it can cause.
Yeah.
And it is like you do got to act on it too. You
can't ignore it.
I get a lot of weird, all kinds of like comparisons of like what it's like. Sometimes it's sculpting, sometimes it's jamming a square block into a circle, sometimes it's fishing,
Yeah.
And for what you're saying, to me, that like right now this reminds me of fishing or something, where like that fish is going by.
Yeah.
And you can either be there for it or not.
Yeah.
But you do have to be there for it. You have to get it. You have to pursue it. And sometimes you got to chase it. Sometimes you got to grab it and hold it. And sometimes you got to let go of it and just
that's a hard one.
Catch like the drift, almost like a bicyclist in a pack that's catching that. Is it drift?
But it's a draft, right?
Draft.
Yeah, when you're behind someone.
Right. They help you go.
I feel like this is less like a music production topic and more of just like a releasing music topic, which I think is important. But I feel like there's things that I invested some money into during this record that I wouldn't recommend or do again. And this part of this, what I learned when I said, I feel like I took a course on, because there's no label, right? So every dollar you spend is your own money. And you fully accept that there's probably a high likelihood that you won't get it back, at least anytime soon, for a while.
Oh, I don't expect any of it.
Yeah, but you don't want to close the door, you leave it open. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll leave the door open, but I'm not. We did that with our album. We put it on vinyl. We made 100 copies.
What?
Yeah, we made 100. And we still have most of them. And but we were like, look, there's 3 people we know that want this.
Yeah, and 100 was the minimum order, right?
That's the minimum, yeah. Yeah, we got the minimum. But we're like, look, that was just the goal, let's put it together and do it together. But
those types of things are important, right? To the things that you really want. Like I did mine to cassette, and I've sold it, and not all of them, but I've sold like a small amount, and it's cool. It's cool that this lives on, and they're really good quality. They're made.
It's a thing too. Like
yeah, it's physical.
The physicality of it's really cool. To hold it, like I made a couple CDs back like 15 years ago, and then everything in between is just in the cloud or wherever. It's nowhere. You can't touch it. And then this record we made is a thing again. Even the book I made, when I wasn't going to print it, but then I saw how easy it was to have Amazon do it for you. And when I held it, I was like, holy shit.
Oh, the book. Yeah, the book.
That's a thing. It's not just a document that, in your computer, it doesn't take up space. It's,
right.
But that is powerful. It's cool you did that you made them.
It's cool.
Too.
I love it. And the design is amazing. If anything, I would say order the cassette just because of my friend Ty Davis's like J-card design. It's like a work. I love it. Like I just think it's so
J-card. I haven't heard that in a long
and it's
time.
like a 3-fold, so you open it up and there's like cool. There's just, I don't know, it's just art, it's cool. And I think I would spend less on, there's things that labels do to promote music that we don't know about, because they have their connections and their email addresses and the people that are relationships who support the label. I'm not going to accuse any labels of doing it. Like, it's just, they have the relationships and it's amazing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's part of, that's, why there's still labels, right? Because we can all put our music out to everyone now.
Right.
That used to be part of it.
Oh, it's amazing. And I would love to find a cool label for Divorce Court. I'm not anti-label, but I didn't find one for this release. And I don't think it mattered much for this one because it was such a personal endeavor, and like I said, I wouldn't have learned all these things if I had a label, trying to figure out every single piece of it was super rewarding. But yeah, there's money that was spent. I really have a hard time. Like you get served ads all the time, like where it's like, here, we'll promote your music and get you on all these playlists on Spotify. Luckily, I did not do that, but I was getting bombarded. The algorithm knew I was releasing a record. And all these companies want you to pay $40 to $500 for packages for Spotify plays. And it's super dangerous because if any of those are bots, it's going to screw up your whole algorithm. And the algorithm is what keeps your fans engaged because it's going to send your music to their friends and their favorite artists, right? Like, I think it's important to respect your algorithm. And I think although we don't have like a huge amount of monthly listeners, I think we have a good amount of followers based on how many monthly listeners we have. And if I was to pay for those packages, like that could have really screwed us up and been a bad decision. And we use certain playlist pitching sites, like Submit Hub's great. Like there's some really great bloggers on there, and we got some amazing write-ups from kind people around the world. And some YouTube channels who were awesome posted about it. And I feel we tried TikTok ads, not recommended. It would be like, and some of this is embarrassing to even admit, right? Because it's like, it feels like desperation, but it also is like, this is how it works, right? Like, this is just what people do, right? But it would be like 50,000 views on your TikTok, and then it would have 0 comments and like 2 likes. And I'm like, does this make sense? This doesn't feel right to me, And you spend like $100 or whatever. So I would not recommend. I'm not an expert on TikTok, so I can't speak on I think if you're great at speaking to camera and performing and being that in that world, I think it's great. But if you're a musician who's trying to just share what you've already created, like here's a music video that I've already created, I don't think it's super useful. But if it was like, here's a song that I'm going to play right here on TikTok on the piano only and sing to the camera, I think it's great.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's scrolling TikTok looking for music videos.
Yeah, YouTube's great for that. I love YouTube's great. We just like have a good, we have loyal listeners on YouTube. Not a lot, but like people who are on YouTube are seeing all this stuff. And I feel like it's a nice audience. I'm a big fan of YouTube.
Yeah, I am too. I think, their algorithm and everything is set up to give people what they want.
Right.
you know, and I mean, I'm like sensitive about my own YouTube account in that like sometimes I don't want to watch a certain video. Like if I'm
Yeah,
trying to fix
same.
my lawnmower, I'm like
Right.
afraid to watch too many videos because then I'm gonna skew what I've like spent all these years building up.
You
That's
could
been
like make a
so
new account just called Lawn Guy and only do lawn stuff over there. You know?
yeah, like it I've come to appreciate how well it knows me, even if that there's something creepy about that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're really right though about like being careful about that stuff because I if they're not already onto it, they're gonna the algorithm and the people programming this stuff is gonna figure out when people are pulling some strings and manipulating it.
Yeah. And it wouldn't even be your doing, right? You didn't know.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and these,
had
I mean,
this
I don't think they have your
experience.
best interest in mind. They're not a fan of they just want your money. You know?
Right. There was an experience I had once. I'd played a show and there was a guy that showed up, like a photographer or something, and he said we could work together. And he put put like a profile for me on his website. And my Twitter went from like, I don't know what I had, maybe like 1,000 followers to like 6,000 followers overnight.
You mean your ex?
What's that?
Did you? Sorry to cut you off. Twitter rebranded to X.
Oh,
Your ex account.
there you go.
6,000 though. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? What happened? You know, why am I seeing this all here out of nowhere and there's no other evidence that this happened except that the number is higher? And I start looking at them and I'm like, well, what are these people? I asked the guy about it. He's like, well, our website just gets lots of hits, you know? I'm like, yeah, right. And,
Dude,
and
like,
as I looked,
what are you, the New York Times? You don't
yeah,
get that many hits.
I'm like, well, oh, and why are they just deciding like they need to follow me now?
Mm-hmm.
And as I start like combing through the profiles, one follower, no followers, they're following a million people. And I was so upset because to get to wherever it was, I mean, it took a lot of work and it wasn't, you know, crazy numbers or anything, but for me, it was as high as I've ever been.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to see that all of a sudden now like invalidated, and if anyone were to look, they'd be like, oh, everyone that follows this guy's fake.
And it's like muddy now because you don't even, you don't know who you're engaging with because you don't know who your
Well,
followers
they
are.
weren't. Those people weren't engaging at all.
But if you look at your list of followers, it's just a bunch of names.
yeah, I don't have any idea who. Yeah, it was really upsetting, you know, when you have put the time in and whatever you've built, however small, you still built it. And then to have it just kind of like glossed over with all this fake nonsense.
Yeah, it's interesting you say like whatever you built because like I see my project as like a enjoyable food cart. You know, I'm like there on the corner. You come get like a really nice torta or like a really good taco, and it's like that. You know, but then like some of these bigger artists you see as like a Chili's. You know, like they make so much money. They're like putting out so much. Their output's huge. They're like corporate, but no matter, I say this bad analogy because no matter what the size, it still matters. And I think sometimes with all of the data and inundation with pressure to grow it, you start to maybe create your own narrative that it doesn't matter because it's not as big. You know, like it matters to somebody.
Yeah, if your food cart had like 4 glowing reviews on Google reviews or whatever.
I'd rather go to the food cart than Chili's.
And compared to then if you got like now 1,000 fake ones, all that like credibility is just gone.
Yeah.
Because you could see 4 and people would be like, oh, this is like a little secret in downtown wherever. We can go to the food cart. But if it's just all fake stuff, it's like, oh, this is just nonsense.
Yeah. I feel like I threw us on a really weird road, but it makes sense in my brain, you know, and
It does. Yeah.
I love when I find an artist that blows me away and their stats, I guess, don't like represent how impressed you are with their music. But that's dumb because we've been trained by Spotify to think that that matters. You know, like we've been trained to say like, oh wow, like 350,000 monthlies. That must mean they're good.
Right.
You know, but it's like I actually like took the artist app like off my phone because I was like, wait, why am I checking Spotify for artists? Like it's a social network to like check data. Like my music is not about data. I shouldn't care about the data. It doesn't matter how many plays I'm getting. It matters that I am proud of this thing that I created, and I'm proud of my friends who created their thing. And we shouldn't be looking at each other. The monthly listeners and the play counts, it's just, it gamifies music making. And I just like, I'm starting to really feel like tension from it, you know?
Well, when are you going to feel good about it? You know what I
know.
mean?
No,
Like,
yeah. Because
what's that number?
Right, because if you have 500,000 monthlies, you look at some of your favorite artists and they have 3 million monthlies.
Yeah, well,
but
shit, how do I get to that?
The first like
Until
physical,
you get to that.
Yeah, like the first physical CD I ever ordered was, you know the band Starfucker?
That sounds very familiar.
They're from
or is that a song? That is,
I think they have a song that's called, they're like
but I think maybe there was a band that had a song called Starfuck.
Yeah, well, I ordered like 2 of their CDs when I discovered them as a teenager. And no part of me, I just found them on maybe MySpace or maybe just on the record label site, but no part of me went to go check or looked at stats. Like I didn't know how many listeners around the world or daily listeners any of my favorite artists had ever, and it didn't matter. You know?
Oh, I can remember even taking pride in liking bands that no one else liked.
That's what I mean. It's like, it's so cool because no one had told me about this band. So I was excited to show my friends like this new CD.
Yeah.
But I also didn't know their metrics. Like why I don't need metrics on everybody's music at all times. It's really strange.
Yeah. Well, that used to be a fun thing back in like when I was a teenager in the 90s to like a band that wasn't big yet.
Oh yeah,
like,
that was the best.
Cool.
Yeah. And then when your friends liked it too, you were like, we like this band together.
First. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like a competition.
I'm more underground than you.
It used to be fun to show people, like more fun I think to show people music. You know.
Well, because you had to, right? Because you had the CD. You need to have the thing.
When you were consciously putting this song on, whether it was in your car or on your iPod, we sound old, but like it's cool to listen to music consciously. And I think that's why people like cassettes and records. Because like when we got that new Heaven is a Junkyard vinyl from Youth Lagoon, like my wife and I, she's like a huge fan, right? And we like pulled the vinyl out and like laid on the floor and just listened to the whole thing front to back, you know, like, and it's different than just like putting a new album on from Divorce Court in the car while you drive, because it's going to bleed into the radio after Divorce Court radio. But like the vinyl ended and then you just hear the needle and then you process like, oh, that's the end of the record. It's over. There's no more sound. Wow. Like it's like a book, you know? And I miss that. I miss that a lot. Like conscious listening.
Yeah. Deliberate, actually sitting down to do it.
And no part of me is like a elitist, or I don't even have a huge collection of vinyl or tapes or anything. And I don't have a super nice sound system minus what I use in the studio here, but I just miss it, you know, like music listening is so different and it's hard to adjust to as a listener and as a music maker, because you try to figure out what you're supposed to do or where you go with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of my music listening is done in headphones and often these little AirPods, and they're like the oldest ones, I think.
Oh yeah.
So they
die pretty quick, now. Right?
They're still going for this conversation, which is cool.
I
don't know how much more juice I have left.
Yeah, the battery started to die. They sound decent though. I like checking mixes on AirPods.
I check them on anything, even just out my phone.
Yeah,
because I know like people listen to music that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But I miss the actual energy coming out of the speakers sometimes too, where, when in your headphones, it sounds nice and it's your own personal experience and it's convenient a lot of times. But there's also something about just like the actual air being pushed against your body.
And the way that the sound like moves around the room.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I like to make music not in the headphones a lot. I am in the market for some new monitors at some point in the next year. I just have like the Yamaha HS7s. They've been great. I mean, nice. I'm not, like I said, I'm not mixing for anyone or for myself most of the time. I'm getting it where I need and then sending it off. But yeah, that's a rabbit hole that I'm scared to go down because there's so many options. And I don't have a treated room. But I don't really feel like I need one for non-mixing, just for production, Right. What do you have?
I've got some nice ones right now. Head MK7, MK2 maybe it's called.
Yeah, I think I've looked at those.
Yeah, they offered a nice discount for Ableton trainers.
Oh, nice. So, that's great.
I bid on that, and I love them. They're great. They had a little bit of trouble with like a chip in them, and I had to send them back twice.
Whoa.
So I got a very early batch of them. They actually told me I might have been the first person in the States to get them when I got them.
That's cool.
Which is cool, but I think because of that, I got like a bad chip or something. But they're awesome. I mean, and my room's not very treated.
Right.
I've got some paneling and bass traps I've put up just myself, which helped a lot. But, I'm not in there's a washing machine behind me that you can't see in the shot.
I've got like the kitchen of my house here through glass doors and then the front yard through glass doors here. So it's just like half windows, this room. And it's hard. So, yeah.
It's nice though, when you get having a nice pair of speakers is great. But I still always have to check everywhere. Not everyone else has those speakers. I'm not even hardly listening on those except for when I'm working, so
yeah,
it's important to go in the car. I probably know my car better. Yeah. Honestly, I've been driving that thing for a long time and over a decade, I think. So I've listened to tons of music in there, more than I have on these monitors.
Yeah. I'm just excited to make new music. I have some new plugins that I haven't really dove into that I want to play on and just start fresh. I love fresh sessions. Like you just open up an Ableton live session and there's just endless possibilities. I haven't done that in a while.
Which can be scary too.
Yeah.
How do you approach that? Because that's, the blank canvas is sometimes paralyzing.
Yeah, I don't try to look at... there was this quote I heard once, and I use it for my work with documentary filmmaking, where it's like, don't start with the how, start with the why. And I really love that because when I'd be planning a stressful shoot or trying to figure out how to solve a problem, I'd always be like, how are we going to do this? I don't know. I got to make a list. It's like, well, let's say why. Why are you doing this? And then start. And then once you ask the question of why, you go down the list of if the how applies to the why, So for me, it's like, well, why am I in this blank session? Well, right now, I really want to program some drums. Or I really am in the mood to play the keys and hear this new plugin from Teletone Audio, right? I really want to dive in and explore drift, stuff like that. And I think that's how most of my music making starts. I don't ever sit down and say, today I'm going to write my new single. That's just not, it just doesn't work that way in my brain, I'm not
it's time for the new single.
Right. By the end of this week, I will have my new single ready for the world. It's like, no, that's not realistic for me.
There's a lot of pressure too, right?
I'm sure there's so many people who can do that, session type musicians. Today we're tracking the guitar for our whole record, and by the end of the day, I'll have done 2 full songs and have it tracked and recorded. It's good for you. But like we talked about, it's a very emotional process, you know?
I like the why approach.
Yeah. Like, why are
I
you
like,
doing this?
yeah, I like to think about like, why am I doing this? What am I trying to accomplish? Why would someone listen to this? What are they doing when they listen to it?
What do I like about this?
Yeah. I
Like, what
want
is it that
music
makes me?
for the bike ride. Okay, cool.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
now I
that's
have a
cool.
place to start,
Bike ride
you know?
music. There are some beautiful scenes in I love the show High Maintenance on HBO, and I thought
Great music.
the music supervisor, I was just
I've
going to say that she did a wonderful job. I think it's she, I forget her name, but I've
yeah, they
done,
have like a playlist on
I've
Apple
like done the
Music
research
that
because I was like, man, the music supervisor on this show did an incredible job.
yeah, I feel like I learned about a couple of new bands.
There's a scene, I think, that's just a bike ride scene through Brooklyn at night, and it's Tycho's A Walk, and it's just like the most beautiful scene, you know. I like New York a lot, and obviously you're near there, like near the city, but I've kind of like romanticized it over the years because of its usage in film and television, and
Yeah.
I'd like to like let that magic continue to live on, you know.
Right.
So when I visit, I treat it like, oh wow, I'm here, whoa, you know. I don't ever want to have that moment where I'm like, ugh, New York, you know. So that I'm not moving there because I really,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
happens when you move here.
yeah,
It's incredible, but I told you I was in Utah last week, and it was just so nice and clean, and
yeah,
the air, no humidity, which was almost a problem. I had like a little bit of a bloody nose,
yeah,
just
yeah.
from the humidity. I had chapped lips, but the air in the mountains was just great.
It's
otherwise.
amazing. Yeah, and it's crazy, right? Like for you as a New Yorker, like landing in the Salt Lake airport, right? And just
Yeah.
like getting a car and just cruising, like there's no traffic. And
Yeah.
you just suddenly you're driving up the mountain 15 minutes later to Park City. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place, I think. And I think people are starting to catch on. You know, we had a
I
lot
think
of
so, based
lot
on the
of
development.
a lot of people moved here, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm a transplant from California. And there's a negative sentiment towards Californians in Utah because they all moved here.
Yeah, probably New York too, city folk.
Every other ski lift in the winter when I hop on is like a family from New Jersey who's there visiting for the week skiing. It's like, yeah, but
But
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
cool.
nice to get those different places and perspectives, you know, the terrain, the hills, the mountains.
yeah,
It's refreshing, and it does make me appreciate here as well. I'm not in the city, I'm on Long Island,
yeah,
so and kind of rural where I am, a little bit anyway. But it does, you know, it was like the swamp when I got back here with humidity,
yeah.
but in a way it was kind of nice because like, okay, now my skin's gonna
Mm-hmm.
be moisturized automatically, and
Well, I think I do some of my best like creative planning when I travel. I always have intentions to create when I travel. I travel a decent amount for like work and with family, and just like I really love to get out, and I love utilizing like Sky Miles and stuff, like trying to get the system and get points and stuff. But I feel like I do my best. Like I always had the intention of I bring my stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make a stuff. I'll bring my push, or I'll bring like, and I never really create, but I feel like I do a lot of creative, like planning work. I'll write lyrics, or I'll like make lists, or like really prepare to go back to create. And I've kind of accepted that's how I operate. Like I had a friend once who went to Japan during like the cherry blossom season. Zach Duval, he makes music as Kudo. He did a remix for me on one of my tracks, and it's amazing actually. On my track, same, but he you hear the blender. He went to Japan with a sampler and a laptop and made like a full beat tape just sitting there in the park. And I always thought that was just like the most incredible. And it comes through like on beat tape. It's just like such a cool beat tape, and you feel the place, you know, but that's admirable because when I'm traveling, I think I'm too distracted to like get work done, but I feel like I feel creative and I want to take pictures and like write stuff down and just, you know, create in other ways. But yeah.
I brought my OP1 to Utah and I didn't take it out once.
Right? I always pack something. I'm going to pack my future OP1 Field when I get it again someday.
No fault to the OP1. I mean, it's exactly perfect for that. But
Oh, yeah.
it was busy, family activities and stuff.
Yeah. And
But
we stare at screens all day, it's hard.
Yeah, it's nice not to. And it was, but I do feel that kind of like recharge, after I've been away and kind of just settling back into being home again, and like something's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like I do way better creative work in the fall and winter, like music writing. I always release stuff in the summer, in the spring, but I guess that's not completely true because I put out my last EP in December, but most of it was done by the end of summer. Like I just love writing, like in the colder months. Like I guess it's a reason to stay
It's inside.
I never hum. Yeah, we're always outside in the summer.
Yeah,
In my
it's
non-work
hard
hours, right?
it's hard to be inside when it's a beautiful day out.
Yeah.
I mean, that always gets me in the summer. I have summer vacation from work as a teacher, and I always think I'm going to do so much, but then I sit in my basement where I do most of my work, and I'm kind of like, it's so nice out.
Right, I want to go outside. I know I'm
Yeah.
like going to go swimming tonight or something. I'm feeling like, yeah, it's time to get out today.
Well, you did the hard work of getting the record ready and, promoting it, not leaking, I guess, but, putting your singles out.
Yeah. 4 singles was a lot, and I don't know if I would recommend 4 or 3 or 2. I don't know, but it felt like fine. I don't know. I don't think there's a right way to do it, honestly.
I don't understand why it's, single album release, and that's like the end of the story, it seems.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now because I'm just like, well, we want to do another music video because we did some really well, like produced music videos with some friends, like my friend who's a director, Trevor Free. And then
Videos you put out were great.
I thought they turned out so cool because of,
Interesting.
my
Visually.
yeah,
really cool.
the concept with the couch was like my wife wrote it with Trevor and he directed it, and it was just like so fun to be like on set doing that, especially when I was just like I can't take credit, like I was the artist and I was in it, but like their concept came through so well, and
That's really cool, though.
It was cool.
People
It was really
do
cool.
that for you.
yeah, it was pretty awesome. Like honestly, it was so cool to see a vision come together on behalf of my song. Like that was special. And then the Blind Spot video, we just shot me, Doves, and Brenna. It was in my buddy's basement. Like he has an underground Japanese-inspired tape bar. They just play cassettes. And it's got like a few seats, and it's a tiny space like hidden underneath this ramen bar.
Wow.
It was
Never
cool.
heard of that.
Yeah, it was cool. You should have come to Salt Lake. But there's some cool little things happening in the city of Salt Lake, man. I hope more people come to visit, and lots of musicians. And yeah, I'm happy here right now for sure. I like it more than LA. Yeah.
LA's a lot.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's happening,
Yeah, and everyone wants to tell you about how cool what they're doing is.
Yeah, that has that.
They'll tell you how happening it is, especially them. Some of my best friends live in LA, and they're doing great work, but it is exhausting, and I think that's why they often leave to seek refuge somewhere else for a while and then go back. And it's hard to afford LA with 2 kids.
Yeah. Yeah, New York's like that too. The city is, it's awesome. It's exciting. And I could have probably imagined maybe as a younger person, my early 20s, wanting to live there for a little while. But, when I go to the city, one of my favorite parts is leaving.
Right? Somebody said that.
It's a lot.
Or that
It's
there's a
overwhelming.
time frame, right? A lot of the people I know who lived in the city who are older now live upstate. You know, they say it's like a 10-year burn, and after 10 years, you're ready to move on.
Yeah, I would have to imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that pretty quick.
Yeah. You're like a 10-hour burn. I'm out.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be there
Oh,
this
it's a lot
fall.
when
I'm excited.
Oh yeah? Are you
Yeah.
playing? Or are you
No, I want to, but yeah, just
working?
shooting some stuff. Yeah.
That's cool. I imagine you must be seeing a lot of really cool stuff with the work filming for Ableton, because I mean the videos you guys do are so they're inspiring. They're well done, of course, too, but there's a lot of cool variety in artists and techniques, and
Yeah, the variety of artists is awesome because it's never the same type of person or artist. And music, I've learned so much from all the artists I get to hang with and chat with. And I think that's a huge reason why the record was able to be finished as well. Just like the amount of things I was able to learn in a shorter time than I would have just sitting here alone in my studio, you know? And so just being around those types of people all the time is really inspiring.
yeah,
I want to
people that
create
are
too.
doing things.
Yeah, and then you
actively working on stuff.
yeah. So it's cool. Ableton is a wonderful organization and group of people, and I don't just say that because I work for them. I feel like super lucky to work for a company that really cares about people and cares about the music making, and not just trying to put out products and turn a huge profit, you know? Like obviously it's a company, but I feel like everyone there from the top down like really cares about what we're doing, and we're all music makers as well. You know, so super lucky, and I hope it never ends.
I always tell people that's probably why I use it, use Live. When I was, I got a computer to make music on in something like 2005.
Wow.
Sold a really nice Tascam mixer to get a computer. And I was using Pro Tools because that's the only thing I ever heard of. Eventually, after a couple of years, I wound up on Logic, and I loved Logic.
Yeah.
And that was then beginning to be around the time, 2008 or so, where you could find stuff on YouTube and learn how to do things on YouTube. So I was looking up tutorials. And
who was your do you have an early tutorial teacher like that you remember?
Oh, yeah. So there was Brian Trifon from Trifonic, who I would only know because of his tutorials. I guess they do a lot of film work. He was doing a lot of Logic tutorials.
Nice.
And there was also SF Logic Ninja.
Nice.
David Earl said something like that.
That's cool.
And Tom Cosm came up a lot.
Great.
Back in those days. But this is what started to happen was I'm looking up Logic tutorials, but I'm finding all these Ableton Live tutorials. And I had Ableton Live from my Pro Tools package. It was 4.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
I didn't understand what it was at the time.
Yeah.
But the more I was, all right, I don't know how to use a compressor but in Logic, but this one's in Ableton Live. How different can it be? And then I start understanding Live a little more. And it was the community thing. And they were so supportive as a company and fostering that.
Yeah.
And even when I first started making like live packs, it wasn't too long into putting out a couple free live packs that like Ableton tweeted my pack.
That's so cool.
Like, what? I remember getting that tweet, that notification. I was like, what? There's so much, like you're not getting that from Apple with Logic. You know?
Yeah. It's different.
Yeah,
Real
it's
humans.
just different.
And
that's like Logic's great. I love it still. When I haven't used it much, but but that community part drew me in a lot, and I was able to learn Live faster. And then I started to understand like why it was cool. And as a songwriter, I think it's a better product for me, the way I work.
Me too. Yeah, I started, my first DAW was Logic, and then short time with Ableton. and they're all great. I mean, DAWs are, it's just personal preference, right? And
really
then found my way back to Ableton, because the first time I was using Ableton, I was early on in my journey, and I didn't really, like you said, I didn't find like the right tutorials yet, and I hadn't really like latched on to my purpose. But once I really dove in, a friend, it was Push actually, that like connected me to like the usefulness of both together. And that's when I was like, whoa, I need this. Yeah.
I came across somebody, I think in my Berkeley class, one of the students maybe, who said they saw you doing their whole set on a Push, and that was like really inspiring to them.
Really?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, maybe like 2 years ago.
Whoa. That's cool.
Something like that, yeah. It's talking about like, yeah, I saw this guy divorce court, and he was doing his whole set on a Push, and he was really excited to get it,
That's
as a
cool.
result.
Dang.
You're using Push now, right? Are you using Push 3 in the live set?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. So what's that like?
It's awesome. It's cool to have it like as I love having, I'm trying something new at a show this week, but I have the Push as the brain, and then I can have like all these synths that I want. I have like a pad, a lead, and like a cool like keyboard sound, like a Rhodes. And then I have a little keyboard going in as an audio input with some effects on there on Push 3. And that's what I love. You can throw anything in as an input and then just like put some really cool effects on the track. And then
you're using it audio interface style?
Yeah. And eventually I spent so much time prepping the backtracks for the way I have it now on my computer with Live. Like, I think I'll keep doing that for now, but eventually it'd be cool to just trigger clips and have it all on Push 3. That would be awesome, especially the more we go into this route of like hybrid triggering and stuff like that. But what's cool is from my Apollo X6, I'm running some of the tracks. Like, I pick 1 or 2 sounds to run out of my Apollo into my 404 Mark II, and then out of my 404 into the Push. And so I'm like using the 404 as like an effects brain and like live audio manipulator for just a few tracks from each like song live. Does that make sense?
So you're running,
for instance,
that's coming
like
out of your computer. So you have like an instance of Live and then an instance of Live coming out of the Push?
Yeah, like I'm using Push just as like the like synth setup and sound creation setup. And then I'm using Live on my laptop, on my MacBook, has the backtracks, and that sits on the floor with the audio interface. Yeah, and then I'm using I showed you this oak tone floorboard Vista the top of my stand to like control they're nice buttons, to control the track so I don't have to like touch the computer. So yeah, like, so for this one track, I sent this like cool sampled piano out of Live, out of the interface into the 404, and then that goes into the Push. So the audio from that goes out to the house from the Push's output. And then like, but on the 404, I can like, yeah, the Push 3 is like the brain, basically. And this is all a work in progress, honestly. And every show it changes. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that was actually an idea from Doves. Because I think the 404 is like the best, just like effects box.
Yeah, I remember you saying that last time we spoke.
I love it, yeah. And then I'll chop some samples from the set and like put them on the 404's pads to like play as well.
They made a new one, right? A new 404. Like, is that what you're using, or are you using an older one?
I'm using the new one. Where is it? It has it's back there. It has a screen for like an actual screen for chopping samples, which is cool.
The last time we spoke, you got me like that close to checking one out. And you might be like pushing me over the edge now.
I mean, I don't have an affiliate code, so I mean.
You know what I hadn't really thought about is that you can use Live and Push separately now.
That's what I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, because when I play Live through Live with Ableton Live, I'm really just using my Push as an instrument. It's just, I'm just playing synths and drums on it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
and
what
then
I
have
was
an
doing.
APC 40 that's doing
Right.
clips and stuff.
Right.
But now you're getting me thinking, like, wow, it's just. I mean, they've always marketed push as an instrument,
Right.
like not a MIDI controller so much, like, but an instrument.
Right.
But now you can actually use it like an instrument and keep live on another computer running. That's really interesting.
Well, and the crazy thing is, like, you can plug a MIDI controller into push.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have push as your like synth and have the pads, but also have like a 37 or 49 or whatever keys there. So they work together. But for me, the pads are really fun because of the MPE. But that's great because now with the push there, I have a sampler. This Yamaha just has an audio input. And then on push, I have as many synths and sounds as I want. And then I just keep it on the mixer mode at the top so I can just kind of tweak as I need.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it's all separate. So I have that going separate, tracks going on live on the computer, and then vocal going through the UAD console straight to the house separately.
Right. And that has all the built-in effects, right?
Yeah.
So.
And it's on DSP, so it processes on the interface, not on the computer. So it's like trying to be safe because I had some computer issues with some shows a year or two ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to run into that again just because I was being dumb and like running like tons of stuff on my vocal chain and playing VSTs. And like, it was just like bad planning.
I've always tried to keep any plugins to a minimum.
Yeah, I was not following
using
that protocol.
Just like it was Isotope Nectar for like an auto-tune effect.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that was the only one. Everything else was native just because, I mean, if live crashes, it's almost always plugin related.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And now I keep them all updated and I'm not having any issues. And yeah, it's been cool. I like figuring it out, you know. And then my bandmate Chase is running his guitar through live and has like a whole chain of effects. So he's sending like a stereo.
A separate live.
Yeah. But he has a push 3 coming. So he'll have his push 3 and he'll run his guitar through the push 3. So right there, he'll have his guitar out going through and then all his effects on there. And then he'll have a synth too, you know, because you can just track the guitar to in and then switch over and play the synth while the audio is still coming through.
Right. That's really interesting.
Pretty cool.
I've thought about one of the things I'm excited about finally getting one would be that it's a synth. You know, it's just like I can make patches on it. I can fool around and just play it like that. But I never thought of the possibility of, you know, I figured if I'm going to be using push and live, they'd have to be working together, but they could be totally independent still. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
It's exciting. I'm excited to try it this weekend.
Yeah, right. So kind of saves some like, almost like a redundancy thing too.
Yeah, because like if something, you'd always have something going.
Yeah.
Because what I learned from Will, if anything, from studio to stage, when I was subscribed, is like keep things as separate as possible for safety, you know?
I've always run everything through live. The vocals.
I mean, that's the thing, is it probably will work most of the time.
I never had a problem.
Yeah.
The only time I ever had a problem was when I had the old APC 40 has a crossfader on the bottom and all the play, stop, and record buttons are there. And I was using that crossfader to make like a kind of record scratch noise using a delay on repitch mode. Mm-hmm. And I would just kind of fiddle around with that, like just to spice things up here and there. And I just hit the stop button one night because it's right under there.
And then did you have to start? It started back at the playhead, right?
It starts back at the beginning. I'm using clips and session views, so it's just like I just was, you know, it was late at night, and I don't think anyone even knew what was going on at that point. But I was like,
I used to use session view for backtracks using consolidated clips and then using follow actions to automatically send it to the next part of the song.
Mm-hmm.
But then in case I could like go back if I needed to, right?
Right.
So I would do intro, verse, like chorus, and I'd have them broken out. It was a pain to set up, but that was always my way of trying to like have it be foolproof, you know?
And that was probably before you had follow actions on the master,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
on this, you know, on each scene.
Mm-hmm. It was just on the per clip, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds.
I've spent too many hours trying to program because it's so different for everybody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the cool thing about having a band. The more we go along, the less we're like feeling the need to have too much, you know? But we're always going to have something in the back, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I haven't really done it with a band, you know, used live.
Yeah.
I record everything on live that we do, but I'm not using it for anything. You know, that's kind of what we're doing is more like garage rock kind of thing anyway.
Right.
So it doesn't really call for it as much as say something like what you're doing.
Right.
It would be a lot of fun though. I've wanted to do it, but it would be a whole rethinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be like really like a different band, even if it was
Yeah.
the same people. It would almost have to be something else.
Yeah.
But it's pretty, you know, that's this blank canvas thing. You know, like it. The thought of it is exciting, but it's also like I don't even know where we would start.
Right.
Like maybe you shouldn't play the bass. Maybe you need an electronic kit. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to think about. But it's been good, man. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to just keep going and think about what's next, you know. But I keep getting reminded to like, hey, like celebrate. Like I've had friends, make sure you like celebrate the release, and it's hard to not just be like, what's next, you know?
Yeah. No, that's true. And you got to enjoy that, you know, what you've got going now is cool. And you know how bands are. I mean, here today, gone tomorrow too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like you have like a good group with you, but,
Yeah, they're great.
if you don't notice what you have while you have it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, man. I always try to like check back in and say like, yeah, I'm very lucky, you know. I have things to be grateful for. Family, job, music, cool toys to play with, and friends, relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Good
it's
problems to have.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
what's
it's like,
next? Yeah, that's a
what's
good
next
problem.
is a good problem. I'm so lucky. I'm lucky to even like be on this podcast. Like so many artists are making stuff, and it's cool that there's a small group of people out there who notice when we put something out. You know. So thanks for having me.
Hey, I love having you. That's great. I love what you're doing, and it was a lot of fun watching the way you did the build up to the album. Was really cool. Seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff with the videos.
Oh yeah, I'm actually editing a true behind the scenes for Woodcrest, the music video that we had shot, and it's cool. I'm just gonna leave it like really unedited because I think it's interesting to see like everything that went into all the shots.
Yeah, because you built like the whole set and everything.
Yeah, Brenna,
complicated stuff.
My partner Brenna, like there's like a time lapse in there of her building out that set.
I might have seen that.
Yeah, and then all the footage of and the crew and where we shot it is this beautiful studio, Moto Studios here in Utah. And it was cool, man. It's feels like a once in a lifetime thing, you know. But
yeah, that's, you know, like you kind of said earlier, the door's open for success, money, fame, fortune, but you know, who knows?
right.
But what you do know is that you had that stuff and you've got this stuff coming up, and that's, you know, if that's anything that you get out of it, it's great.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like it's kind of like a trip. Like you may like I never regret any trips that I take with the family. even if it costs a lot of money or time, or if it's stressful, or if it's like, my kids don't adjust well for a bit to like the time change, it's the best. Like the memories and the time, it's just different, putting ourselves in a different environment. And I feel the same about the time and money that we spend on the record and art, and just, art in general. Any projects we do, like, you're not going to say, I wish I didn't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't look back and think like, ugh, why did I create that thing?
Yeah. Why did I make this album?
Like, Amex loves me too, you know, like Amex, this album was sponsored by American Express. You know what I mean? You don't have to, there's so many ways to go about it, you know, and I don't think my way is the best way, but I'm really grateful and happy that it happened. You know,
you remind me of a feeling I had just recently with going to Utah, actually. There's a little stress leading up to it. We have a dog. What are we going to do with her? We need someone to watch her. You know, we just lost one of our dogs. We had two.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
She passed. Yes.
She was older, right?
No, she was the younger one. Actually, we got her as a puppy.
Oh wow.
Such a good dog. I'm still having a hard time with it. It's been about a month.
Oh wow, it was recent. Jeez.
Yeah, and it happened fast. But we had this trip coming up, and you know, what do we want to leave the other dog alone with somebody? And then like the actual travel or the delays and the cramped airplane.
JFK.
Ugh. I mean, I was really saying like, is this worth it? You know, is it worth it to do all this? And even the getting home was like, it was arduous. You know, it was 2 full days of travel when you add them up, just based on delays and whatnot. But now, even just less than a week out, looking back, like that's not what I'm remembering. You know, it's all the other stuff, and there's a lot of value in there. And even if it's worth a couple days of stress and travel, and you know, things work out, and you know, you can take from it what you want. And if I want to take away from that trip that the airplane sucked and we had delays, like that's what I can pay attention to, I guess. But it was really good. Just probably did come at a good time too, just considering all the stuff we'd been through in the last couple months, to see family and you know, it's you don't regret it.
No.
To get to your point.
Sorry about your dog. That sucks.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I think it's like the same thing with like, nobody knows. Like, you listen to an album, you're like, wow, like so much energy. This is just, oh, I love the feeling of this record. But you don't think that like, oh, wow, like 80% of that was some person just sitting at their studio desk, just tinkering over sounds, and just like, if you saw like a behind the scenes of the making of this record, it was just a whole lot of this. You know what I mean? Just like alone at night, 3 a.m. A lot of these vocal takes were like middle of the night, just random times, you know? And you don't think about that, you know? You just think about how the music feels. And or the mix engineer, like Ryan, just hunched over, like just mixing and headphones on, trying to get it right. Just like trying to get it right. He was having some like CPU issues with the heat and like the just plugins, and there's just always something, right? Some activation, or for me, it's always just something I need to like reset or plug in, or I don't know. That's why I've gone more to like a really hybrid setup of less hard. I've always favored plugins, you know, or like real, like I recorded a lot of this piano, this 100-year-old Gold brand Sin piano. I love simple, fast creation. You know, like I don't want to spend 30 minutes setting up an instrument or a device.
That's not fun.
No, and that's why the Push 3 is so cool. The other night I was just like making a beat on my balcony with headphones on at night, you know.
Nice.
Sitting on the couch. It's nice.
when I was in Utah, my nephew brought his guitar. He's got this beautiful guitar. And my headphones are dying. If you want to know the update on the AirPods, this is about
battery
that
life.
They and he had it out at first and played it quite a bit, I think I've switched over here.
Nice.
There we go. But we put it in the case just to keep the place clean. And then I didn't play it until like the last day.
Really?
Because there's a way. It's so simple. It's in the same spot, but the accessibility, even something like an acoustic guitar, you don't have to plug it in. You don't have to power it up or get batteries or anything.
It's so crazy.
But just those 4 latches is enough. So having like stuff ready to go.
I always try to have everything like ready and plugged in, and I have all these switches. I have these like American DJ like power strips with switches, where everything can just turn on. But every time I walk by the piano, I play like at least like one chord. Mm-hmm. I see it as like practice, but I'm also just like, I can't walk by it without, like, my kids do it too, without just touching it. Mm-hmm. It's just always out there. There's no, I don't ever have the cover down. I just want it to be out. Like yours looks like yours is like that too. Whatever's back there.
They're pretty easy to power up. There's a power switch, like a power strip, and then I have devices in Live that are already set up, like with the external instrument. They're all routed, so you just drop them in.
So nice. That's one thing I want to do now that I'm not making an album, is spend like a week cleaning up my libraries and presets and deleting like old plugins that are like out of date or like not supported, or sample libraries. I don't delete stuff, but I have this folder in every like folder structure on Finder. I always have this thing called Z_archive, because Z puts it at the bottom. And I'll just like put stuff in an archive folder. Old projects or like sample libraries that I don't really like deleting them, but I just have all these archive folders. It's like a no man's land. Maybe it's hoarding, but to me it feels like an organized way to move stuff out of the way, but to still have it just in case.
Yeah, I guess if you open a session and it's got that missing files alert, you probably know to direct it to the archive.
Exactly.
At least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have fantasies of just deleting everything.
That's
clean
great.
slate. Yeah, I've never done it, but
Dude.
sometimes I think like I would get more done.
Yeah, maybe.
If I just went back to the basics and only added things as I used them, instead of like for so long I've added things just in case I need them.
I know I don't use that many different like plugins. I feel like I have my go-tos. It's a mix of live devices and third parties, but I feel like I don't use most of the plugins that I have. I really love stuff from Teletone.
I don't think anyone does.
I really love Valhalla. I use every time. I use Sound Toys every time. I use Good Hertz. I love their plugins. The Wolf compressors, amazing. Yeah, Good Hertz. Good HERTZ. Their stuff's insane. And I really like this stuff from Baby Audio, which you turned me on to a while ago, and then Yum Audio. They make a couple cool, quirky plugins.
What is the other one?
Yum Audio.
Yum Audio.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar, but I can't think of what they have.
But, yeah, I don't know. I say I don't use that many plugins. I start listing like a giant list. I'm like, yeah.
Right.
Like, it's like the SpongeBob thing. It's like 1 hour later. It's like, and then this one and this one.
Yeah, or like the movie The Jerk. I'll be fine. Just need this thermos. I've got a folder in the collections in my browser and Live just called Try Me. And that's where the new stuff goes.
Ooh, that's nice.
I tag it Try Me. And then when I want to try something new, I know that stuff's in there. That helps me remember.
That's better than like working or like late. Like Try Me is a little more playful. It's like, hey, hop in here and try. I'm gonna do that. Try Me.
Yeah.
And that's nice because it doesn't just limit you. You could put a sample in there. You could put a project in there that you started. Like,
yeah, sometimes it's even just like something I have used or I want to come back to at some point. Just a little reminder.
One thing I like to do is, I sound like an episode of One
Hi,
Thing.
I'm Lynden, and One Thing.
Hey, yeah, they're going on one thing I like to do. I like to go through old projects that I never finished and just listen through the consolidated folder of samples.
That you've consolidated yourself?
Yeah, because like throughout, like there's different ways that those files are placed in there and get consolidated, right? But there's often like weird little sounds or loops or like cool keyboard ideas or melodies that are in there that I never remembered. And then I don't have to open up the project.
Yeah.
I just like go through and hear them, and then sometimes I'll start a new song from that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, right. And they're also out of context.
Totally out of context. Like that little arpeggio might sound way different with the bass and the drums, but on its own, you're like, well, that's really cool.
Yeah. You might hear it as like a minor chord. But it was...
There was one song on the album called Take Me that started as like a loop that I made from another song on the album, like an 8-bar loop, and I put it to the end. And I like just pitched the chord progression down, and it started like within the project of another song on the record, and then I moved it to its own project.
Nice.
Yeah.
So good when that works out, right?
I know. Rarely does that actually happen where it turns into a finished idea.
Yeah. But, it's a great way because everyone's got unused or unfinished stuff. So to just look through that folder, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because that's stuff that's probably processed a little and fiddled with.
Yeah.
Spent some time with it.
And then you can like put in a simpler and like pitch it around and mess with it. Yeah, it's fun.
That's cool. It sounds like a good One Thing, actually.
I thought about it. If we ever like really need, I'm the last option. I'm like the desperation option where it's like, we got to do this. You know what I mean?
I don't know. You could probably
myself.
just make it without telling anyone and then just...
and put it out. That's not me.
Yeah. This was what you guys wanted.
Yeah. Man.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Maybe we should wrap this up. We've got late.
We did the thing we were talking about where we went way too long.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not too long. I enjoyed it thoroughly, man.
Me too.
I love the new record. I've always enjoyed your music, but this is a definite evolution, and I'm very happy for you to hear how far you've come musically.
Thank you, man. So nice.
Artistically and all that, and just success with the job with Ableton, and it's been a cool journey you've been on the last few years.
As my friend Trevor, who made the music videos with me, would say,
all that, yeah.
He says, too blessed to be stressed.
I like that.
It's true.
Too blessed to be stressed.
Too blessed to be stressed.
Yeah. You know what? Because it's easy to focus on the things that stress you out. They tend to zoom into your face, but
face,
whatever it's zooming into. It's when you can. I've heard it said like you can't be angry and grateful at the same time. I don't know if that's true. Somebody said it.
Gratitude is the secret, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, too blessed to be stressed is a
Trevor
nice,
Free.
concise way of putting that.
Well, dude, thank you guys. Thank you, and thank you to anyone who listens. That's what I said. But yeah, thanks for listening to the record. And
yeah. Well, people should check out Divorce Court 2 Hours wherever you stream your music. Is it divorcecourt.com?
Yes, with 2 T's, because the other one was taken.
I should say the funny story about you sent me a shirt some years back, and it came in the mail, and it said the return address was Divorce Court. And my wife was like, what is this? Don't worry.
That's funny.
Yeah, it could easily be misinterpreted.
I should do that again. The last few things I've sent out, I put my name, but I should do that. It's probably pretty funny, right? For the mailman.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah. Mailman put that in the box.
Good luck.
Oh, sorry. Well, cool. 2 T's then.
Yeah, 2 T's.
Divorcecourt.com. And yeah, the album's very easy to find. And then you can get to YouTube through there too. And I'll put all this stuff in the show notes.
Yeah. And I think I should real quick plug, if you're going to go to my website, plug a really good friend of mine's startup. They're called Super Tape. And that's what my website's built on. It's just strictly for musicians. It's like an auto-updating like link tree of sorts, but it's a full website. And every time you upload a merch to Bandcamp or wherever, or a new song, it like brings it all in and automatically like puts it on.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that because I would only do this if it helped immensely and if it was a really good product. And there's such a cool small team. I think for all your listeners of like real music makers, it's just like a cool thing for sure.
Yeah,
and
well,
I got tired of updating my link tree, right? Every time I put out a song, change the pre-save, change the video. This does it all in one place. And I think my website like looks really nice because of, thanks to them, you know, it just.
Well, that's like a pain in the ass thing. Every time you make something new, you got to post it everywhere.
Exactly. And it always just stays the same. And like, yeah, if I have new merch or tickets to a show, it's all there. Really nice.
I'll check that out too.
Tape,
I like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And thank you to anyone that's listening. Have a great day.